Good morning, everyone. It's April 21st, 2020. We're calling the Wright County Board of Commissioners meeting to order a few minutes late. We had audio issues that have now been corrected. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. And welcome those here and that are joining us remotely. Commissioner Burrell is in attendance as part of the board, and Commissioner Potter will be joining us momentarily. All right, so we have the minutes from the board minutes from 4/7/20.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the board minutes.
I will second that.
4/7.
All right, motion made by Commissioner DeLyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes 4-1. All right, the county board minutes from 4/9/20.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the April 9th county board minutes.
All
I'll
right,
second it.
motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner DeLyden. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes 4-0. Review and approval of the agenda. I understand there is an addition, potentially.
Yes, I'm aware. Alicia's here from Soil and Water and has a notice of appointing membership, and you can speak to that, I guess, if you'd like.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. I would like to petition the approval of the Water Management Task Force members for 2020 onto the agenda. We have 3 appointments for this year.
Madam
All right.
Chair, I'll make a
Commissioner
motion
Wright?
we put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Yes.
That works for me, Commissioner Vetch, is that,
That's fine. Just for transparency, since it wasn't part of the packet, it's just appointing people that have already been serving on the Water Task Force, and it's just bringing them up for another 3-year
Correct.
term.
Yeah, I had originally sent it out. I apologize. I had one incorrect member. I've resent it. So it should be Jeff Burns from the SWCD supervisor instead of Commissioner Vetch. So Jeff Burns for SWCD, Doug Triplett from Township Representative, and Gloria Grant Winnemer, a citizen at large.
all right. All right, so there's a motion to petition this onto the consent agenda by Commissioner DeLyden.
And I'll
Is there a
second that.
By Commissioner Vetch. Any discussion on this item? We will add that then as L under consent agenda.
Gonna go the whole alphabet.
I know.
Do we,
All right.
we don't need to vote on that. We just need to vote on the
The agenda.
the
We will
agenda
just be
itself, right?
voting on the whole agenda then.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the added one for the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Lyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. And, wait, we added to the consent agenda, but we didn't.
So we're approving the whole agenda.
Approving the whole
Approve the agenda
agenda
with
first.
the addition of L1 to the consent agenda.
All right,
Correct.
all right. Any discussion on that? Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Vetch,
Aye.
aye? Okay. All right, the agenda is approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda
All right,
with the modification added to it.
all right. Motion made by Commissioner DeLyden. Is there a second for the
Madam
consent
Chair, just
agenda?
for a quick second, if we would entertain, I'd like to pull item K1A, just have a brief expectation discussion.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner DeLyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch with, Request
Whether
to
he's
pull-
okay with the removal of K1A.
Yeah, that's fine.
all right. Any other discussion? All right. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Aye.
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 Commissioner Burrell?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Vetch,
So this is more just, not just this particular position, but I just want to make sure that we're understanding that we have these position replacements for a variety of different departments that have been coming up. And I just wanted to have a discussion collectively. We're not necessarily replacing them right now. And then we maybe should have a discussion, because when we come out of this smoke or fog or whatever you want to call it, and where the economics of all this is going to look like, some of these positions that are put on hold because is our construction still going to be the same? Is workload still going to be the same? Everything's going to be remotely different. I want to make sure that if we're replacing them, we have another chance to maybe discuss it when we come out of the situation that we're currently in.
Sure. Yeah, I guess to comment to that, I took from the workshop the other day that we were looking at all positions in a discussion with administration, and based on the board's comments, before we were filling them, I've had some discussions with some of the departments that have open positions, and some have agreed already to hold, but we're working on getting through the entire list. So my thought would be that you could approve the position now, but to be clear on the understanding, that's not guaranteeing we're filling it now. That just starts an iterative discussion with administration, whether or not the need is there. So,
Because, Madam Chair, one of my biggest concerns is because in a downturn of an economy, if we get there, hopefully we don't, but if that is the case, the positions that we allocated before and the need for different positions may come up, and that's where I look, and there may be a need to look at reallocation of those positions into different departments. And that's the reason I just want to make sure I'm careful when approving these positions, that we're setting fair expectations for the departments.
and I think that that's, a good comment, and certainly good thought behind that, because we do have to, things are popping up that are changing, positions perhaps, our needs are changing, so things that we would not have anticipated a few months ago. So I think that that's good, and as we move forward, administration, when you're, working with our departments and that kind of thing, we need to, know that they may not be filled for a while, depending on.
And that's where I guess I just want to make sure that administration's conveying that to the department heads, that just because it went on here and, it says replacement, that's still not a slam dunk guarantee, that we have some further discussions. And just for the general public, a lot of these positions are on hold. Majority, I would say, of positions we're not filling at this time.
Right.
We're just doing it, the ones that are in the dire need positions, per se.
And this is essentially a housekeeping thing. Position was vacated, so now the request is to fill it, but we don't know when that might happen. So, yep, thank you. All right, is there a motion to accept that, or do we not need to, since we approved the consent agenda?
With the removal,
we removed K1, so.
K1, so we need to, then, I will make a motion to move the position replacement to administration for item K1.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Delight, and any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Madam Chair, I really couldn't hear enough to know what I'm voting for.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Vetch asked that K1, the position for the survey technician, be removed for further discussion. And what we talked about, he brought up the fact that, yes, it is a position that's been vacated, and the request is to fill it, but we're not saying that it's going to be filled right now. We're kind of stepping back to make sure that we're cognizant of positions that might come up that we can't necessarily promise that we're going to fill them right now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the meantime. So.
Okay, I'll vote aye.
Okay, thank you. All right. Moving on to our timed agenda item. Bob Hebel, Auditor Treasurer.
Morning, Board.
Good morning, Bob.
We are 25% of the way through the year.
Hold it, Bob.
So Commissioners, we are 25% of the way through the year. So a lot of our revenues are seasonally, so there's really nothing for me to draw your attention to. But property taxes don't come in until May. Expenditure-wise, we're on budget, but we are seeing some fluctuations in overtime due to projects that we're working on. So unless you have any questions, you have the first quarter of the year budget report in front of you.
Any questions for Bob?
They all look to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the March budget and CIP report.
All right.
And I will second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Any more discussion or any discussion? Do you have any questions, Commissioner Burrell, for the report?
No, I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 4-0. Can you hear us better out there, Charlie, or are you able to hear us better?
Say that again, Madam Chair.
I was wondering if you were able to hear us better. It seems like it's very loud in here, but
No, but if you look toward the camera, I'm reading lips. So,
oh, okay. I do that a lot. All right. Okay, our next item is Mr. Virgil Hawkins, our highway engineer, with a couple of things. Virgil, are you on?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delyden.
before we go to Virgil, Matthew, will the people be able to see that, him, or is it tied in directly, or is it through the camera?
No, it's tied in directly, and whoever is speaking, the system keys on that individual and their face will pop up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
That's what's going on in YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry, Virgil.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board of Commissioners. I have two items for Highway before you today. And the first item is the request to approve a speed zoning resolution so we could have MnDOT study to determine the safe and reasonable speeds for Highway 19 in Albertville from 37 to 38 and Highway 38 from 19 to 101 in Albertville and Otsego. And parts of these roads are currently under construction, but we get the request in now. These usually take about a year and a half to get completed. So we'd like to get this approved and up to MnDOT to get it in the queue so that when these roads are rebuilt, we can have these studies done and then shortly afterwards post the speed limits appropriately.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for segments of, for the speed studies regarding County Road 19 and 38.
I will second that.
All right. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch for the speed study. Is there any more discussion or any discussion?
Aye.
And this is a resolution. Commissioner Vetch?
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes 4-0.
Okay, thank you. The second item this morning is to approve two resolutions for changing the designations of the following county highways. And this we talked about at the Transportation Committee meeting in February. County State Aid Highway 41 would be converted to County Road 114. And then County Road 138 would change to a County State Aid Highway. And we'd use our banked mileage so we'd get more of our more needs done. It would give us a little more funding for county state aid dollars. That would turn into CASA 83. And once we get these resolutions passed, then the city of Buffalo's got to pass a concurring resolution, and we'd get this ball rolling to get these designations changed. There's a map included in your packet too.
Madam Chair, I'll make a,
I'll second that.
Motion?
Approve the resolution
Approve
to,
the resolution for
yeah.
41, change to County Road 114.
All right.
All right, I'll
Motion made by
second that.
Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch to revoke the designation of County Road 41 to County Road 114. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes
Madam
4-1.
Chair, I'll make a motion to change the designation of County Road 138 to change to County State Aid Highway 83.
All right,
I'll second that motion.
resolution to redesignate 138 to number 83. Is there any discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right, resolution passes 4-0. All
Okay,
right,
thank you.
Thank you, Virgil.
thank you, Virgil.
Thank you.
All right, so we're down to items for consideration already. I guess I should have asked you this, Administrator Kelly, if you'd be so kind to run through our workshop minutes.
Sure thing, will do. As mentioned, we had a workshop last Tuesday, the 14th. We had all commissioners present, with Commissioner Burrell being present remotely. The agenda, we did the minutes in order, although we took this first item last. So we had a discussion about committee meetings and suspending them and providing updates, what's going on in the facility construction via written updates to the board. Technology committee is planning to meet via WebEx this coming week, and we will also be holding a personnel committee tomorrow here at the courthouse to discuss a couple items that were on hold since March. Jamie Goodrum Schwartz talked about her desire to meet with HR and administration about hiring 4 of 10 positions that are vacant in her department. We also talked about preliminary budget discussions and beginning those earlier than usual due to the need to evaluate the impact of COVID-19. Out of that, administration will work with the auditor's office in developing budget information that'll come to the next workshop in May. We also talked about upcoming items. The Trailblazer update was planned for the May workshop meeting, and we will, as mentioned, bring that budget workshop discussion at the same time. We had an item hanging over from an earlier meeting in January about the WIC program, and we'll look into that. So, the main topic that started out, we had a presentation by Bruce Kimmel, who's a senior municipal advisor from Ellers, talking about Economic Development Authority and the process for developing that. So Bruce kind of gave us a high-level overview, and the packet of what he presented is attached to the minutes here, so I'll just summarize. Kind of talked about what is required by the statute to set up an EDA. We did have some discussion as to what the county currently is allowed per statute as far as disposition of property and the methods that we have to do to go through with statute if we do not have an EDA in place. Kimmel also mentioned we may be eligible for some federal funds that would not be otherwise available unless we did have an EDA. So we then turned discussions on the assembling of a EDA recommendation committee. Statute requires we have a number of people that represent jurisdictions in the county or other interested entities that would like to partake. So he was thinking we just start some discussions now of who wants to be on that committee. And we're thinking it might be better to do this in June or July as COVID moves a little bit farther down, we hope. So we were thinking of drafting a letter to send to cities and townships to solicit input on which entities or individuals would be interested in becoming involved on that committee. So Kimmel talked a little bit about the proposal that was presented to assist the county in developing and facilitating us developing an EDA. Would be billed at $250 per hour with a maximum cost of $10,000, which would be about 40 hours. So Ellers provided an update of kind of the steps that would be required under the statute governing EDA. We'd have a kickoff meeting, a notification to local government units. The board would adopt a resolution creating the committee to recommend options regarding economic development service provider, work on selecting committee members, draft the report that's required within 90 days of the initial meeting, and resolutions as needed. So we had a little discussion briefly about who may be interested, we thought, to be participating in this committee. Left the meeting with a recommendation that I'd follow up with Bruce Kimmel to draft a letter that could be presented to cities and townships. We would either discuss today or at the next board meeting as an item for consideration. We could choose to either act at that time or move it to a committee of the whole for further discussion. Next item on the agenda was the jurisdictional transfer, Braddock Avenue and County Road 147. Virgil Hawkins presented those and a report, cooperative agreement that between the City of Buffalo and County of Wright related to this transfer. And some of the details, we would reimburse them for 3 years of maintenance costs following the transfer. We also learned that there is about 380 feet on the east end of County Road 147 in Rockford Township. We've reached out to Rockford Township and hope of negotiating something with that as well. So this item was informational only. Next item was an update on the Central Mississippi River Regional Partnership, or CMRP. Commissioner Vetch talked to some of the activities that are going out. They're planning on doing a survey of the partners and interested parties. The project is being called, the planning partnership is being called Framework 2030, working with Planning Next as the consultant. So they're currently gathering information and pulling that together for the group. The main point, as I took it, was that we were just wanting to provide information and keep the group informed so that the representing member on the CMRP committee was speaking on behalf of the full board. So another item, we spoke about coronavirus or COVID-19. We started discussion on a couple different policies that had been rolled out. We talked about the remote procedures during a public health emergency and distributed that document, and talked about a few things that we wanted to have some clarity. We stressed that employees need to be responsive, whether that's a 1 hour time frame or in general terms. You need to be responding to your emails and phone calls during this time, of course. And from the point on this current pay period, starting on April 19th, employees will use their PTO or vacation leave if they're home but not doing work activities. So wanted to reinforce that message. We'll still continue to use the COVID-19 line to track time worked under this period of COVID-19 in case we get some reimbursement. And wanted to clarify, again, talking about if there is not, if an employee runs out of work during the day, the expectation is that they contact their supervisor, and their supervisor will ensure that sufficient work is provided. We will also discuss between departments tasks that other departments have for us employees to work on if they find themselves to be short of work. So it's the understanding employees will be using their PTO or leave time if they're not working, or if there is no work, or if they are sick. So again, back to some forthcoming policies. The voluntary leave without pay was discussed. That would allow employees to choose to go unpaid during this time if they would so choose, and it works with the supervisor and department due to the workload. We're expecting a lot of department heads at this time, and keep tabs on employees and working remotely, and make sure that folks are checking in as work is getting done. We talked briefly about the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, or the CARES Act. Talked to that. Sean Johnson provided a high-level overview of that policy that was passed at the federal level. So Recommendation, administrator will draft communication for employees regarding the voluntary unpaid leave policy, expectations of staff and supervisors regarding accountability when working remotely, and availability of additional sick time through the CARES Act. We'll forward these for action at the 4/21/20 board meeting. So those policies and guidelines were attached as part of the consent agenda. So very quick summary. Any questions on any of those items or minutes?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Delyden.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated here, but I do have one comment.
Okay.
And I will second the minutes as well, because I'd like some other discussion on some of the recommendations.
Yeah. You know, one of the
Motion
things...
made by Commissioner, we'll just first we'll say and then we'll open for discussion. Motion made by Commissioner Delyden, seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Discussion? Technicality.
Call for a roll call.
Give a person somebody position and it goes to their heads.
Is that a roll call or?
No, we're going to have a discussion.
No, but for the minutes, we're approving the minutes right now, we're not doing the recommendations yet. So do you want to approve the minutes and you get that vote over with?
I'd rather have some discussions first.
Okay. Because it may be a separate
Yep.
motion for the recommendations.
Yeah.
I just thought maybe just get the minutes approved and be done, but, okay.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we can do the minutes first and not the recommendations.
All right.
That's fine.
All right, do you want to do that?
Yep.
All right, motion made to approve the minutes, and seconded by Commissioner Vetch. Any discussion about the minutes themselves? All right. Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 All right. Motion passes 4-0. All right, the recommendations, Commissioner Delyden.
Yes, one of the things we didn't talk about was furloughing some employees where they could go on unemployment because there's some, and I don't know how that affects the county overall, but I know that there's some additional funding where they get an additional $600, and I'm not sure if that's beneficial to some of those employees out there or not. You know, especially for those that have run out of PTO time and that sort of stuff and taken a leave without pay, if we're better off furloughing those particular employees. And again, I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions, but I'm just concerned that if somebody takes a time off without pay, that won't be a good thing for that employee. So I don't know, I think that's something we may need to look into as an option,
And that-
depending on how long this thing lasts.
That's definitely, completely a voluntary thing. That's more designed for people that have a lot of time on the books or just want to save it for later on, and they can afford to take a couple of weeks off or whatever.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, but I'm just,
But as far as the
everybody's
furlough,
different.
in unemployment, we basically pay the same amount for unemployment as we do for having them employed. So if there's a furlough option because of COVID, then that's something that we can look into, but I think that would need to come really before the board as an item for discussion.
Yeah, and I agree, it's not something we can answer here, but I'm just, because they're offering that additional $600, as part of the COVID package, the state is.
The Fed is. It's money that came in from the federal government.
Oh, okay.
That would be available to people through July 31st, that basically is being allocated out through the state, but.
So it could be, they might get 600 from the state and then another 600 from the federal government.
So you qualify for whatever your unemployment rate is, whether it's 100, 200, 300, 500, 600 bucks, and then you get another through deed. It'll come through your unemployment. It'll say federal deed unemployment check, $600, and then you get another separate payment from your unemployment for whatever dollar amount that you qualify for. So essentially, there's people that are out there that are made $12, $13 an hour that are getting $250 a week for their state unemployment and then getting the $600 on top of it, and they're actually getting more money on unemployment than they are
I guess
when they were working.
the person that was telling me about it happened to been getting 600 from the state, so that's why I was thinking that it was 600, but that depends on what their amount is, that makes sense.
So anyway, it's just something that, another tool in the toolbox, I guess, to put it as some people have. We just need to look at it as another option for some employees, again, depending on how long this lasts.
Yeah,
So,
and
I just wanted to,
I think it would be good to get that maybe on our board meeting or even next week, and if Sean could be involved with this process from HR.
yeah, definitely, the HR department's going to have to be involved in this one.
Yep, so,
And I mean, that's definitely for a good discussion for long-term, just because as people exhaust out their time off,
Right.
it may be something we have to have a discussion on. I mean, I just want people to understand from the public, the savings of just laying off employees is marginal just because of the way, as a government entity, the way we pay our unemployment. I don't want
Right.
them to think that we're not trying our best to, in this difficult times, to be fiscally sound for the citizens of the county.
we're using other means to be more fiscally sound, yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And you had a question?
Mine was regarding the letter, and I wanted to make sure without Commissioner Potter present, and I wanted to talk to Commissioner Burrell. I wanted to make sure that he was comfortable, since he's not here in person. I want to make sure with that letter, do we want to take that to the next stage and actually sending that out to the variety of municipalities, townships, and so forth? And then the other discussion is timeline on this, because when we send this letter out, I think it really needs to have some sort of dating to it. You know, when do we just kind of fictitious, or not fictitiously, we kind of threw a date of June, July, but I think it has to be a little bit more solidified than that.
As far as
Like-
somebody responding back.
Yes, I think we have to put a hard date. We have to put a hardline date on that, I think. So whether it's June 15th or, I mean, I don't think it should be any sooner than June 15th. That would be the very earliest date that I would put on it. And obviously, I wouldn't do any later than July 31st either, so.
Yeah, something's reasonable, so if this went out, are you thinking like around May 1st and request to be back by June 15th?
But the interested parties, yeah, I would hope that we get out somewhere between May 1st and May 8th, and then have all interested parties to respond back by June 15th, and then we'll schedule, once we get all that information, we'll schedule a first committee of the whole meeting, whatever we want to call it at that time, to
choose
who's going to make up this committee of investigating this process, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so do we want, when the people respond that they're interested, a little bit of background about them, why they want to do this? I mean, we just don't want a name, do we?
Because right now, we're asking just for name, email, kind of real basic
Basic
information.
contact information only, yeah.
I guess it would be helpful to have a little short paragraph as to what is their knowledge in economic development, and, you know, what I guess because we're going to get what they're representing, whether they're representing a city of Monticello, city of Cokato Township, whatever. I mean, I think we need to know what entity they're representing. I'd like to know a little bit of what their background in economic development is, and I guess.
And why they're interested.
And why they're interested. I mean, I guess a vision statement would be a short sentence as to what their kind of visioning is for the county. It would be helpful in having the discussion.
And so we should add that to
A questionnaire that you have interested parties, please submit, you know, a brief statement as to what your expertise in economic development is and what you see as a vision for the county in terms of an economic development.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and just include that with the letter of basically a question.
What you
as a
represent,
separate-
yep.
Yep, as a separate sheet.
Yep. Kind of an application, I guess we'd call it.
I think that sounds good. We're talking about for,
We're on the workshop. And we're discussing the recommendations. We just discussed briefly the, working with HR to develop, if this COVID pandemic thing goes out longer, what unemployment would look like for employees if that would ever get to that point. And then now we're talking about the letter that we'd be sending out to the municipalities, other jurisdictions within the county, and trying to solidify a date and kind of putting an application process for those that would be interested in participating.
Thank you.
So those would be clarifying the recommendations. Does that answer everybody's questions?
Madam Chair, Mr. Kelly, are you kind of clear on what that then?
Yeah, I've been taking notes. I think I have a good, we'll work up some probably additional language to add to the letter to clarify what we're expecting people to submit.
Perfect.
Good. All right.
Charlie, you still awake?
He looks like it.
I know, a little foggy there.
It's real hard to follow the audio, you guys. Just, I'm just putting my trust in y'all, so I hope you know that.
Oh, great. Thanks, Charlie.
I just wanted to echo what Charlie was saying. In all honesty, it's going to have to come from the memo. I know you're talking about something about furlough, but it is really difficult. I tried my headphones, I turned my speaker way up, and I'm with Charlie. It's hard to understand.
Yeah, we'll have to continue to work on that because if you're in the chamber here, it's loud. I mean, I hear my voice, echoing back at me, so.
Is everybody hard to hear, or is it just certain people?
It's really not just certain people. It's just regardless of who's talking, it's hard to understand. It's like a foreign language.
Well, it's choppy. It's like it misses we get every third word, maybe, something like that.
It's like buffering.
All right. So, are we, do you have a motion to move the
I'll make a
recommendation?
motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations with the modifications that were made here regarding the EDA letter and regarding the direction for staff in terms of the drafting of some other policies.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Any more discussion?
We got Brian on the screen. Does he have something?
Was this for the EDA that you're voting?
Madam Chair, can I explain to to Commissioner Burrell?
Yeah, go ahead.
He's wondering about,
Charlie, can you hear me?
Yeah, asking.
I'm going to try and speak real close to my microphone. So can you hear me really good?
Better, yeah, go ahead.
So we're just right now approving the letter to send out to basically get people to be interested in being part of an exploratory committee. We are not approving or creating an EDA. We're just sending a letter out to get people from across the county, a cross mix of townships, citizens at large, city representation to sit on a research or group to decide whether we should move forward with it and what the scope would be if we do move forward.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Vetch. No, I understand. I'm going to be voting no on this anyway, though, just because I just don't want to go down the road. I don't want to even start it down the path. So, but anyway, I understand it's going to pass, though. So.
Fair enough.
all right. So we did vote on the minutes before, but now we're moving on the recommendations.
Now, we're making the recommendations for all the different things.
Right,
All of them, yep.
everything.
The
EDA regarding the budget discussions, putting that on the 512 workshop. So, since Charlie wants to vote no on the EDA, do we want to take them
Right.
a little bit separately?
We can certainly do that.
I would be happy with that. Yeah, the rest of the stuff I was okay with, but the EDA thing, I just don't want to go down that
So
road.
I will amend my motion to remove the EDA letter, but make my motion to approve the recommendations minus the EDA letter at this time, and then we'll come back to that one.
All right,
I'll second it.
motion made by Commissioner Vetch.
Okay, now,
Seconded by Commissioner Delyden.
is this the one that this for or no?
This is the one not including the EDA letter.
So,
This is all the other recommendations.
Not have anything, nothing with the EDA?
No,
Nope.
It's all the other recommendations from the workshop.
It's mostly, yeah, it's mostly,
Okay.
it's mostly.
I should have
actually-
Tom Kelly helping me out. Maybe he's hearing better.
Actually, the other recommendations are informational only, except, yeah,
There's a couple of recommendations on here.
Yep,
all right.
all right.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
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 All right.
All right. Now I'll make a motion to approve moving forward with the sending out of the EDA letter for the creation of the exploratory committee with the said information of the date of June 15th for a deadline.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Potter. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Aye.
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 I vote no.
All right. Motion passes 4-0.
4-1.
4-1.
I'm so used to saying 4-0. Sorry, Charlie.
Oh, I don't count, huh?
I really did count your
We're
vote.
having audio issues.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on to item B, property tax payments. Bob, are you kind of here for that too? And
Yeah, I'd asked Bob to come down, as I know he had reached out to our cities, townships, school districts to get some input. Similarly to other counties in our region have been reaching out to the other jurisdictions to get a sense from them. The board, I've seen across the state, boards have looked at two different options. The first one being delaying payments, making them not due until later, July 15th, for example. Other counties have looked at, and most of them around us have looked at adopting a resolution that reduced the penalty. So the due date would still be the May 15th for the first half property taxes, but instead of as time went on, up to an 8%, they've chosen a number that's lower than that. So we've talked about this briefly at various meetings, and I thought it'd be good to discuss it today, just to get some sense. The tax day is still a few weeks away, but if we were looking at doing one of those two options or something different, it'd be good to get some movement towards that, so we'd have it in place in time and could communicate it out. So
I don't know if anyone else has heard from constituents. I've heard from a couple of constituents requesting that we
Madam Chair?
put it out 2 months.
Oh,
Commissioner
I
Brown?
would just say on this property tax payments and stuff, I would recommend that we follow the recommendation from Tammy and Bob from the auditor's office. If we just lower the percentage to like say a 1%, that the people, it helps them out, but they still have skin in the game where not everyone is just saying, I can't pay my taxes. There's still a penalty, but we would be in effect kind of reducing the penalty a little bit. I would favor that route.
I guess in, some ways, this is a real hardship for some of the taxing entities if we hold them off completely for 2 months or 1 month even. And it is kind of complicated with the systems too, so they can set their, I don't know, setting, but
Madam Chair,
Mr. Dryden.
I'd like to hear from Bob on what those taxing entities had asked for. I'd like to find out what I've talked to a couple of them, and they, you gave them two options, if I remember correctly, and most of them said they preferred option one. So I'd like to hear what the other ones had said.
Sure, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Working with other counties, we developed a retail to our municipalities. And in there, we asked them, before you was an option to delay taxes. You can't really delay the due date, but you can take action about not imposing a penalty, recognizing that taxes would be paid later. So we wanted to know what their preference would be to delay the tax payments and have a less settlement for June, or to impose a smaller penalty and therefore encourage more on-time payments. So the reaction we got from the municipalities was kind of both camps. Some of our eastern counties did say, hey, we recognize our citizens need relief, so they said, hey, postpone them. We did get responses from some of them, most of them in the schools saying, hey, we have debt service, so we do need those tax dollars. So I don't know if you want me to go through some of the samples I have, or what would you prefer?
Sure, I mean, I think that would help.
Okay.
Help people to understand.
So School District 728, their preference is to reduce the penalty.
I don't know if we need to, do we want to talk?
So
I don't-
what
I
were
don't know
the-
if we need to say individual district, but
Right.
just what the, or who they
Okay.
are, but just what they're, how many
Next
you
one
have
says,
that-
thank you. Our preference is to number 2. Thank you for keeping us informed.
So what were the two choices, Bob? Maybe you need to state those for the public and stuff.
Right, so the two choices was to, A, not delay the due date, but
Speak into the mic.
not to delay the due date, because we can't do that, but we can delay the imposition of penalties. The second option would be to reduce the penalty from the stated rates. Everybody can see it on the back of their tax statements, to just reduce it to 1%. And that'd be for May and June, and then July would wrap that up to 2%. And then in August, unless some other action comes forth, we'd follow the state guidelines. So that was the options 1 and 2. A municipality said, we believe number 2 is more equitable. Another municipality said their preference would be for option 1, since it would seem to give the most payment flexibility to our property owners. Another municipality said their preference is number 2, reducing the 8% down to 1%. Another municipality said, we appreciate information what the county is doing to help the citizens. Their preference would be number 2, to lower the interest rate. Another municipality, our tax levy is large. We maintain a good reserve balance. For debt service, we don't have a lot of excess money. They'd have to borrow money. So as far as giving property tax relief, my first thought would be to delay 2 months. But again, they're echoing the stress on their reserves and potentially have to borrow money for debt service. Again, this would be from a school district. They're very sensitive around their payroll dates. They don't want to have to borrow money. So they didn't say it here, but they did say later that the option is number 2.
Madam Chair, and Auditor.
Yep.
Mr. DeVilla. So majority of counties have kind of gone to the piece of reducing it to the 1% for the remainder of May, June, and going to the 2% in July. That's kind of been the uniform.
Yes.
And that's echoing with the majority of the entities that we reached out to are requesting. I guess it would only make sense that we would follow such a similar practice that seems to be tried and true and seems to offer a good amount of relief for the taxpayers. With that, I'll make that recommendation that we make that modification to the property tax payments of reducing the penalty from the current, I think it's 8%, to the 1% for the remainder of May and June, and then to 2% for July.
Madam Chair, if I can add to that, of course, the state does take more affirmative action, we'd follow that, but if the state doesn't take action, this is what I'd recommend you take.
Absolutely.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'll second that.
Motion made by Commissioner Vetch, seconded by Commissioner Delyden. Discussion.
Madam Chair. Thank
Commissioner
you, Madam
Potter.
Chair. The whole time I've been here, I've been a big push for 6 months of operating reserve, and I've had pushback from all of you. This is exactly why I want 6 months of reserve. Something like this comes up out of the blue, nobody's fault, it just happens. And I think some of those school districts and some municipalities do not have that reserve. And if you go 2 months out without property tax payment, they're in a world of hurt because they might have just the state bare minimum on reserves there. And people say, well, you're just holding on the money for nothing. And they're the same people that are going to turn around, I want my taxes abated for 2 months. It's like, well, how do you think you're operating the government if you don't have the money reserved? I mean, it's still the people's money, it's still there. But that's the unintended consequence of this. And the other one is if you delayed that property tax for a couple months, majority of the people would be honorable and they're fine. You'd have some of the big taxpayer game players would just, hey, I'm not going to pay it for 2 months because I don't have to. I'm going to go invest the money somewhere else and I'll come back later and pay it. I mean, it's the unintended consequence when you do it. So that's why I fully support lowering the fee to 1%, you know, and for the couple months here in the 2%, and hopefully this thing turns around and try to promote other forms in the future of relief for small businesses in our county.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I can add, Tammy, my tax administrator, she's on Skype with us. And I know that this resolution is the easiest to administer for us. Going to the other option, there's so many options that can come into play that makes it administratively nightmare, I think as Tammy would say. So I know Tammy is echoing the same recommendation to go.
Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Lydon?
The question I have is that you collect the state property tax for us businesses. So when does that money have to be forwarded to the state and other than the reserves, I don't know if, I mean, that should be beneficial, having those reserves. Is that going to put a stress on the county?
Well, Madam Chair, Commissioner Delight, I think you're referencing the state looking to delay the state tax on commercial and seasonal rec properties. I don't know if that's going to pass the...
No, and I don't know either. So let's just say it doesn't pass. They decide to wash their hands of it and leave it up to the county, but the state's still going to want the business property tax. So when is that normally payable to them?
Commissioners, I believe what's due to the state is based off of collections. So whatever we collect, the state portion, we have to remit to the state.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to pay what you don't collect it, per se. So
Tammy,
we don't have to worry
correct?
about a cash flow issue.
Right.
Okay.
Tammy's, if you're on there, if you can respond to that.
Hi, everybody. I am here, but I cannot hear. I heard a little bit of what Delighten was saying. It has something to do with the state tax, the state portion, but I'm not quite sure what the question is. Sorry.
So Tammy, the question is do we only remit to the state tax that we collect, or do we remit to the state what is on the statements?
Bob, can you speak closer to the microphone? That might help, maybe.
I sure can. So the question is do we remit to the state just the state tax collections we receive, or do we remit to the state what is due?
Yeah, so we only remit what is collected.
Right.
Yep.
So it shouldn't be a cash flow issue.
Okay.
Good question, though.
Thanks, Tammy. I just wanted to get that verified.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's a good question.
Yep, you're welcome.
We don't want to be in a cash liquidity issue.
No, and, you know, and Commissioner Potter has a good point that we've got good reserves, but some of those reserves are also tied up in bonds or whatever else you have, which doesn't make liquidity very easily either.
Right.
So, anyway, thank you.
So we had
Any-
the motion and we had a second.
Any more? Yep, you made the motion and you seconded. Is there any more discussion? Commissioner Burrell, do you have any questions? Commissioner Burrell, do you have any questions?
I'm kind of with Tammy, Madam Chair. We're almost clueless here. The only thing that I just want to make sure, if Bob is okay with the motion, I will vote for it. I just don't want the people in his office, including Tammy and the whole works, to do some complicated thing rather than just a single entry and, you know, we can take care. I don't want a whole bunch of extra labor in the auditor's office. That's my
Yeah.
concern.
Commissioner Burrell, this is our recommendation.
He must be on the other side of the world.
Frozen.
Okay, roll call vote. I vote aye.
286.
All right. We're ready for a vote. Roll call vote. Commissioner Potter?
Aye.
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 Aye. And he already said.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes 5-0. All right. So, moving on to advisory committee, advisory board updates. Would you like to start, Commissioner Burrell? I know you've had some Skype meetings or WebEx.
You know, Madam Chair, I will say this, I was not at a Fair Board meeting, but I did talk with Dennis Spizey with the fair, and it's something that we're gonna hold off as far as canceling it or anything like that until as late as we can. I know there was a deadline to print the guidebooks, but I think I had Attorney Kreiser look into it, and we could actually do a digital edition later than the print deadline. So it may come to that, but it's something that we're going to have to consult with the county board. The Fair Board will want to work with us, because it really, if this thing is still hanging around, the COVID-19, and it cuts attendance down 20%, I mean, it's going to be a huge loss, and it may be such a thing that we wait until next year to have our 150th. So that's just, I just wanted to put it out there. It's one of our big events from the county that this is affecting too. So we don't need to make a decision just yet.
I was been thinking about that with the 150th anniversary, and you're right. It could still be the 150th celebration next year if you had to postpone it. Yep. Anything else, Commissioner Burrell?
Madam Chair, that's it.
All right. Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple items here. On the I-94 project, you know, we got in the quarters of commerce money to get that segment from St. Michael to Albertville, and we got some other supplemental money to get from from Monticello to Clearwater. The missing pieces from Monticello to Albertville, and we applied for the build grant. We didn't make it to the finals for various reasons. Some of them I'll tell you offline are personal reasons. I think that why we got there. But in the supplemental infrastructure bonding that they're doing at the federal level, there's talk about the part going from Albertville to Monticello, but cutting it in half and just doing the westbound one this time, and then doing the eastbound later to cut that project, because the funding mechanisms where the hang-up is. I think I've heard numbers of $70 million to do that, and if you cut that in half, 35, that might make it more palatable for the state along with the feds to go along and get this done. I mean, and my opinion is if we can get half of that, fantastic, it's better than nothing. And the westbound also matches the mantra of not only the federal but the state's guidelines. They want to have the flow out of the metro go smoother instead of having a bottleneck into the metro. So if that's out there and it's flowing out of the metro faster, it's helping. That's one thing there that it's looking promising. We've had Congressman Ember has been instrumental in being at the forefront and talking with Transportation Commissioner Cho on this to make sure that we get there, plus Margaret Anderson Kelleher, getting out all the people in there on that. So that's hopefully good news to come on that. The next thing is Highway 55 Coalition. There's a webinar meeting this towards the end of this month with the Highway 55 that refers to Tamarack Avenue, which is in the metro area. It's Medina, but it still affects 55 Coalition. And so we're going to be part of that webinar talking about that with WSB and how that affects, because that's another segment that we need to be, or at least I'm going to be really engaged in this part to show our partners across the river, hey, we're still here. We're not just going away just because it's not in our neighborhood. So that's going on. The other thing is that our library system has implemented in some locations curbside pickup. You can call in for your books. Curbside pickup, which is good. It'll still be reduced. Some libraries have closed, like Rockford is closed, but some of the bigger ones have implemented that. I know St. Michael has done it. I'm pretty sure Monticello is doing it. Getting some of those, so people can get there. And this just lends credence to that locker situation, that with a locker setup like Sartell has, in these types of times, it's the perfect way to get the materials out to the people. So those are things we're looking at. We did have a library board Zoom meeting last Tuesday night. A few glitches, but nothing too bad. And most of it was just fundamentals, how we're doing things, you know, because we had it was a different kind of pay. I don't want to say strike pay, but some other thing with pandemics going on, a lot of those were at a reduced salary for their positions, and now it's morphed into the next phase where it's basically furloughed for a while, the ones that have closed. And most of them have gotten reduced hours on their thing there. The thing that we just started discussions on the budget, and it is unanimous, it's going to be as flat can be this year, and if not, since we're very healthy on reserves there, we're closer to 8 months of reserves, we're probably going to use some of those to buy down that budget this year to help counteract the issues and the effects of this year. So looking forward to having a very flat, if not a negative, number coming in for the library board. The only thing that could make that different is because our tax capacity keeps going up, so our percentage, our share of proportional share goes up, but try to keep that as flat as possible in that realm there. It's worked out well. And I also want to put thanks to the maintenance staff for installing the electric here.
Yes.
Get this done, because we're going to go away from the paper, getting these computers, just have it happen. The only thing I'd like is, with the IT department, is I need a different screen that's a little bit larger than this Dell so I can see it better. You know, because by the time you get the Dell, it's got only a partial part of the screen. I need a little bit bigger screen so I can see, otherwise I got to get cheaters and squint all the time.
Yeah, that's.
And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
That's what they're called, cheaters.
That's all I have.
All right. Commissioner Vetch.
So last week on Thursday, myself and Commissioner Hewsome, we had our AIS Zoom meeting. We discussed and we made our recommendations for the treatment grant allocation for the lakes. We also discussed applying for a educational behavior grant change. The DNR is offering 12 $5,000 grants for behavioral changes. We are applying with the designation of bait disposals at a number of our landings in Wright County if we would get that grant. We also talked about AIS detector sponsorship. We currently only have 2 people in Wright County that have had this designation. I guess I didn't even know that this existed.
I didn't either.
It's you can probably speak to it better than I could on what it is. It's a pretty robust class education that you have to go through, and you're required to do a certain amount of volunteer hours. Is that correct?
Well, you have to go through this training, and then you're certified to go out and, look for AIS, and it's, like you said, it's a volunteer program, and we only have 2 in the county right now. So I think it's just to raise awareness that this is an option that people can do, but I think a lot of people would be interested in getting trained, to identify AIS.
Because I think as part of the scholarship, they were required to do like 20 hours, wasn't it, or something? I shouldn't even throw the number out there. Maybe it was 12. There was a certain amount of hours that they needed to do.
25. I did write it down.
25 hours.
Yep, 25 hours.
Okay.
Yep.
Seems fair
So
enough.
it's an extension program through the University of Minnesota.
Because was it $300 or something, the cost for the class, for the training? I can't.
That I did not write down.
I did not write that down either.
We'll have to wait till our minutes come.
Yep. But other than that, it was a good meeting. We covered a lot of different topics. I really am glad to see this group's coming together in a good cross-section of people representing a lot of different areas. Good discussions every time.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, thank you. Anything else?
No?
All right, in addition to the AIS, I also had a mentorship, education, and drug awareness webinar, a Zoom meeting, and we discussed our 9-month action plan. We're applying for this grant through Drug-Free Communities, and it would actually be, it's $27,000 for 5 years to have someone that's specifically working, providing educational materials and that kind of thing for reducing drug and alcohol use among youth particularly. And this is, part of the requirements is to bring in more members of the community. So we've got enough people now that fill all the categories. So it would be Public Health, Minnesota Drug and Teen Challenge. We have a member of the clergy, media, community member, state representative, Buffalo Hospital, probation, county attorney, sheriff's office. So we filled these positions, and we also approved some with rack cards. So we're having them printed, and essentially, there's not any events right now, so we can't specifically use them for events, but we've got them, and we will use them at some point. I also was on KRWC last week and had a lot of the discussion was on COVID-19 and how it's impacting us, the things that we're doing in the county. And then I had an Association Minnesota Public Safety meeting via Zoom last week also, and that was essentially kind of covered what's going on in the state. And actually, incarcerations are down 50% since March 1st, which was something. Across the state, domestic assaults are up, as are car thefts. So those are, the car theft, I was kind of, didn't realize that. But he was talking about all the different practices now with probation, and certainly our court services have a real robust plan, and they're implementing to keep the probation officers safe and also their clients. So there's a lot of innovative ways now that they're meeting with their clients, and so that's something that's happening not just in Wright County but across the state. So that was a good one, and so I also had another webinar connected with my Safe Harbor meetings, but that's about it for me. Mr. Leiden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charlie, can you hear me?
That's a no.
I actually heard you say, can you hear me? And I heard Chris say something about webinar.
Anyway, last week on Tuesday, Charlie and I were on a Skype meeting or WebEx or whatever it was with Wright County Community Action, where there was discussion regarding the meals that they've been delivering to seniors and how Trailblazers has been helping that out quite a bit and how that's been expanding dramatically. And they're also looking at some of the dry meals through Homeland Security as a backup, just in case the frozen meals aren't available. But I know it's been working really well, they said, with Trailblazers doing the delivery. Also, Public Health has been also going out, helping the bus drivers with deliveries and that sort of stuff. Was there anything else that we had talked about that was important?
Madam Chair, thank you, Commissioner Delighten. I would mention too that the Head Start, you might have said that, I didn't catch it, but the Head Start bus drivers, they're not driving routes right now, but they were delivering meals too, so it was kind of a pretty ingenious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot about that, yeah. So it's been well. So anybody that does have those concerns, they can contact Wright County Community Action, and they can sign up right up on their website. And then the other thing is that this week is National Volunteers Week, so I just want to thank all those volunteers who've been out there helping everybody, doing awesome works. Yep. So just wanted to put a shout out there for those that have been volunteering.
Madam Chair, I can ask Commissioner Dahlin a question, because I mean, I know that as of last Friday, I think Jay sent out that they had like over 800 applications for the senior meals. Did he talk about in there at all when you guys had your conversations about how they're getting down the list? Because I know the number of people that they have to verify in the callbacks it's.
Well, the way they sounded, they've got some more volunteers actually helping out, going through that list.
Good.
Yeah, and that was one of their issues. They kind of got backlogged. They didn't have enough people for the demand that came up, but they've gotten quite a few people to help. And as far as I knew, the way it was told last Tuesday, that they were dwindling that list down. Charlie, is that you recommend? Rick, is that what you thought too?
And Mark, I missed that part.
About the list of people that have applied that they hadn't gotten through yet. They've got more volunteers going through that list, right? Getting it narrowed down?
Yes, I think you're right.
Okay. And that's all I got.
Madam Chair, one thing before we move on. Commissioner Burrell, you got a suit coat on. Do you have pajama pants on? Stand up. Some of the newscasters there, they had the suit on. You stand up, they had pajama pants on.
He sent me a picture earlier this morning.
I put my dress pants on. If you look back at the deal when I did the Pledge of Allegiance, you'll see I was dressed.
Okay.
Madam
But I
Chair,
just did that as a joke.
Sacramento News.
I appreciate it.
Administrator Kelly, do you have anything? Sorry.
Hey, at least I'm not in the hot tub, right?
You don't want to be like the Sacramento newscaster that was in the bathroom and she didn't realize her husband was behind her taking a shower.
That was a bad one, wasn't it?
Oops.
Administrator Kelly, I know a lot going on, it seems like.
Yeah, certainly a lot going on related to COVID and a lot of discussions going on and in preparation, not knowing if the order from the governor is going to be extended, but we're having discussions about planning for when things are reopening. Building maintenance has been really good about trying to find some unique ways to provide some distance and shielding in the event May 4th is the date, so a lot of work with that. HR, of course, will be putting out some more guidance today and discussions with some of the things that were mentioned today. Jamie had asked, just a reminder that they're planning for a Human Services Board on the afternoon of the 27th. One other thing too, thank you for the board members. We've been rolling out some of our change management items for the ERP, done a couple webinars and sent out a change readiness survey. So thank you for attending those. It's been very interesting at this point. So we're starting to transition from the BPA or business process analysis portion into looking at some of the early configurations that are being done. So keeps moving forward even though we're all meeting remotely now, more so.
Yeah, it's great that we have that option. It's not quite the same, but at least when we have audio problems, right, Commissioner Burrell, it's not ideal, but certainly it's great that we have that. So otherwise we wouldn't be able to meet in the same way. We have to do conference calls, I guess, so. All right, anything else for anyone? No? All right. If not, then we are adjourned at 10:17.